Hey, in this video we're going to take a look at while looping in Python. In order to do that, I need to give you a couple of extra things too, like the length function, and I'm also going to talk about booleans, true and false. So let's get started. What does this do? I'm going to go ahead and put my breakpoint in there right away, right click on the file and start the debugger so I can step through this. Pop over to the console in the debugger and I'll hit step. Alright, this printed out 0. Why did it print out 0? Well, this first function I'm telling you is called the length function, and this is how you figure out the length of a string. Well, the length of an empty string is 0, and that's why it prints 0. In the video, I'm not actually going to type out the answers from now on, but you, for your assignment, you should type out what you describe as happening, but I will still talk about it, of course. Here comes the next line. Print len, this is a string. Notice it does not print the string itself. It just prints the length of the string because that's all I fed it. Okay. Run that next one and it says the word programmer has blah 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 characters in it. And what I've done here is I've used string concatenation to do this. Now I'm going to go ahead and stick another breakpoint on that, and I'm going to rerun this file. I'm going to change this so that I get rid of that str in front, and I think the file you download starts out right like this without that str in front of that. Let's rerun it and see what happens. So now I'm at the breakpoint and I step and I get a huge error message. And it says, can only concatenate string, not int, to string. Int stands for integer. So it's telling me that I cannot concatenate an integer to a string. This is a very, very important point in Python that makes it different from JavaScript. In JavaScript, you can take a string right here, and then you can add a number to it, and JavaScript will automatically change that number into a string and concatenate the two. But Python will not. It'll throw an error. You can't combine different types together. You have to explicitly change them. So that's why originally I had this str in front of it. What I'm doing is I'm taking the length of the word programmer and I'm converting that number to a string so that I can concatenate it to these other strings. And now when I rerun this, debug, hit my next step, I don't get an error. It prints out the word programmer is, and this feeds 10 characters in it. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. While loops, number 1. We now have what we need to run a while loop. What I recommend you do for this is move your breakpoint down. If you try to step through a while loop, it's gonna like loop back to the beginning of it over and over and over again until it's done, and that's super annoying. So remove all of your earlier breakpoints, set a new one after the while loop, and rerun the file. And now we'll stop at the end. So this was while loop 1, and it printed out the word Stockinger. So what exactly did it do? Well, we started with a string s that I set to the word Stockinger. Started with a variable I set to 0, and that's my counter variable for the while loop to keep track of how many times I've been through the loop. And then res stands for result, and I start that with an empty string. So what this loop does is it concatenates one little piece of the string s onto the result each time through the loop. And each time through the loop it adds one to I. So the first time through the loop, I is 0. It's going to add the string s. In fact, what I'm going to do here is go back and show you that happening with the inline. You can see the inline value of the variables right up here. Let's show you that. So right now, first time through the loop, result equals capital S, I equals 0, then it adds 1 to I and goes back to the beginning. Now it's going to add index 1 from string s, which is going to be the t, and you can see it threw that on right there. And so it's just looping through, adding letter by letter to that string until it gets to the end and prints out the result. Okay. Pretty simple. While loop 2, I've made a small change on this one. Run the code below. What happens? Why? The only thing I've changed is I used to have while I is less than the length of s. Here I changed lesser than or equal to s. I'll go ahead and change my breakpoints again and rerun this. Spits out a big fat error message. What is the deal? It says index error, string index out of range. If it says I is lesser than or equal to length of s, that means it's going to go all the way up to the length of s. Well, now s has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 characters in it. Thing is, though, that means it's going to go up and ask for index 10 of that string. There is no index 10 because it starts at 0. Right? If you start at 0, it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to get to the end of that string, and that's why it gave me that index error. Okay, so go ahead and write that up for me here to describe what the deal was there. While loop 3, same game, except this time I don't start at 0, I start at 9. Right? The length of s is 10. I'm going to subtract 1 so that I can start at the last index 9. And then I'm going to say while I is greater than or equal to 0. And notice it says I minus equals 1 in here. I'm counting I down instead of counting up. So this is the same game in reverse. I'm going to go ahead and rerun everything down to there. Pardon me, I'm actually going to have to comment this out so that it doesn't throw that error. And now let's start through here and see what happens. I'm watching the value of result right down here because I don't want to have to scroll back up to the original result. This is where it shows it inline, but I'm going to scroll down here and keep watching it down below. And notice that the first character in result is the R. It's the last character in the string S. Now I has gone down to 8. Now it added the E. That's the next character back. Do you see what's happening? This loop is counting backwards, and it's going to print out my name backwards, Regnacots. So there it is. Pretty cool. Booleans, let's get to the last part of this. Here's 2 lines. One of them is going to throw an error. Let's figure out which one. Okay, x equals true. Boom, did not throw an error. Y equals true. Boom, got an error. The name true is not defined. Wait a second, aren't they the same thing? Well, no. You'll notice that neither of these have quotes. They're not strings. This is a Boolean value. Boolean means true or false. In Python, Boolean true has to have a capital T. If you don't put the capital T, it throws an error. So I'll go ahead and comment that out so that it doesn't throw the error. Change my breakpoint, rerun, go to the console, looking good, no error. It passed that, and you can see x now has the value of true. So you tell me in the comments, what are the 2 possible Boolean values in Python? And please be careful to type it correctly. Interesting ways to use Boolean values. If I say print 10 is less than 8, that will print the Boolean. Is 10 less than 8? False. It is not. 10 is not less than 8. Is 20 greater than 20? No. 20 is greater than or equal to 20. But it's not greater than 20. How about this? Is the string 42 equal to the number 42? False again. Okay. So important things to recognize about the Python language. Final challenge here. I want you to write a loop that prints the alphabet backward. I've given you a string right up front so that you can store the whole alphabet in that variable. I want you to reverse that variable and print it out. Happy coding.